he's on, we're going to have the senator say a few words, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, let's talk for just a few minutes about Facebook, and then we can talk about anything else you want to. We had an interesting hearing yesterday. As I explained to Mr. Zuckerberg, I come in peace. I do not want to have to vote to regulate Facebook, but by God, I will. Facebook is an extraordinary company, fine American company. What Mr. Zuckerberg has done is very impressive. The good that Facebook has done in terms of connecting our world is at times been magical. But we have learned through bitter experience that the digital promised land has some minefields in it. And there are two problems. One is the privacy problem, and the other is the propaganda problem. And those problems need to be addressed. It doesn't bother me that Facebook is big and powerful. That means they're successful. I'm not against big. I'm against dumb. And the Facebook business model right now seems to be Facebook first and people second. And I think it ought to be the reverse. There will be dozens of bills introduced regulating Facebook over the next few days. Whether they pass will be up to Mr. Zuckerberg. I was mildly disappointed in the hearing because I hope I'm wrong on this, I felt like we weren't connecting with Mr. Zuckerberg. He was well rehearsed. He's obviously whip smart. But I wanted to, and he did acknowledge the problem and accept responsibility. I appreciate that, but we knew he was responsible. I mean, he built the company. He's the CEO, and he votes all the stock. What I'd hoped to hear was 3 words. I'm on it. Here's how I'm going to fix the privacy problem. Here's how I'm going to fix the propaganda problem. And I will be back in 6 months to tell you what I've done, and we can evaluate the success or shortcomings of that together. And with that, I'll be glad to go into what I mean about the privacy problem. Let me just hit it a quick click. I think it is swell that I can go on Facebook and see what some of my high school buddies had for dinner last night. But I'm not sure, no, I am sure, it's not a fair exchange, in my opinion, for me to have to give up all my personal data to Facebook and whomever else Facebook cares to share it with in the Western Hemisphere, and trust Facebook that that data is going to be protected. It hasn't been protected. We know about Cambridge Analytica, but I fear that there are many, many Cambridge Analytica problems out there. In terms of propaganda, we have to be careful here. There is no question that poison is being spread on the internet, particularly on Facebook. But in doing something about that problem, you have to ask the very relevant question, what is poison? And I would like to see Facebook control the poison that's being spread without taking sides. I think it would be, there were some accusations yesterday made against Facebook in terms of it helping the Republicans, and there were many accusations against Facebook in terms of it erring on the side of supporting Democrats. I think Facebook needs to be completely neutral. Final point, the biggest surprise to me of the hearing was probably that Mr. Zuckerberg said a number of times that Facebook is responsible for its content. That was startling to me. Facebook and the other social media platforms have consistently and vociferously argued that they are not responsible for content, that they are just a neutral platform. For Mr. Zuckerberg to take that position, I thought was a major new development. And with that, I'll answer your questions.
Fred?
Yeah. Hey, Senator.
Hey, Fred.
Hey, we've all heard the rumors, and we've even seen some indicators. Wondering if you'd like to take this opportunity to confirm whether or not you're going to run for governor in Louisiana in 2019.
I'm thinking very seriously about it. I haven't made a decision. I don't think Governor Edwards has been a very effective governor. He hadn't done anything. I mean, he's basically let illegal immigrants in and let dangerous criminals out and whine for more money. I just don't see the progress that we have made in terms of education, in terms of economic development. Our labor participation rate is an embarrassment. I don't see what he's done in terms of infrastructure. I don't see what he's done in terms of health care. He's spending more money, but I don't see any metrics showing that our people are getting any healthier. He hasn't done anything in terms of reforming the Department of Transportation and Development. Their overhead continues to be off the charts, and their mantra, just like the mantra at DHH, is we need more money, we need more money, we need more money. And I think we need a change. Now, whether I'll run, I hadn't made the decision yet, but I'll let you know when I do.
Senator, this is Caitlin from KPLC.
Yes.
Hi. Back to Facebook. You made a comment that the user agreement sucks.
Yes.
How would you change it?
I would write it in plain English. I mean, the user agreement right now, I forget how many pages it is. It's like dozens of pages, and it links to other sources. I mean, clearly, and I thought Mr. Zuckerberg was a little bit disingenuous in this. He's saying, "Oh well, we put it there so people can know what their rights are." No, he doesn't. He put it there because his lawyers are trying to cover Facebook's rear end, and it doesn't explain to people what their rights are on Facebook. And by Mr. Zuckerberg's own admission, most people don't read it. And I think he ought to go back and rewrite it. I think he ought to get rid of the legalese. I think he ought to write it in English. And I think he ought to list the privacy rights that people have on Facebook. I think it ought to be very, very simple to exercise those privacy rights. I think he needs to explain to people in clear terms what happens to their data. And the use agreement doesn't do that. And Mr. Zuckerberg is way too smart and way too talented and way too capable to try to look us in the eye and tell us that it does. He knows it doesn't, and he needs to go back and fix it. Now, that's pretty basic. That's pretty fundamental. If he's not willing to do that, then I don't consider him to be in good faith, and I hope he is in good faith. You know, my biggest worry, we didn't have time to get into this yesterday, but my biggest worry is that Facebook doesn't know how to fix these problems, that these problems, privacy, propaganda, are too big for Facebook, that Facebook has grown so quickly and has grown so powerful and is so massive that they don't know how to fix the problem. And that's the most frightening thing of all. Now, we're not there yet. I want to give Facebook the chance, but I just didn't feel like we made as much progress as we should at the hearing yesterday.
Do you think he's being properly held accountable?
I'm sorry?
Do you think he's properly being held accountable after this trial?
Well, we've started to. I don't think he has been in the past. And again, I don't want to hurt Facebook. I think Facebook does much good. My objective is to try to find a way to preserve the good but combat the corrosive effects of Facebook. But clearly, there's some impurities in the Facebook punch bowl. The digital utopia is not all milk and honey. Now, these privacy problems are serious. I asked Mr. Zuckerberg point blank. I said, can somebody call up and say, okay, I want all of John Kennedy's data, everything you know about him. And I don't want just the data, I want the data and the name. I want to be able to connect all this massive amount of data to a name, and I will pay you a lot of money for that information. Mr. Zuckerberg's response was, we wouldn't do that. And I said, that's not my question. My question is, could you do that? And he said, yes. We're supposed to accept on the honor system that he's not. I'm not saying he is. But that is a significant circumstance as far as I'm concerned. I'll give you another example. I didn't have time to ask this, but I believe the answer would have been yes if I had said, look, can some advertiser pick up the phone and call you and say, I want a list, not by name, but identify all 16-year-old teenagers in Louisiana who have a poor body image, who are depressed, and don't have a boyfriend, because I want to target them. I think he could do that. That's how they make their living. It is basically leasing that information to people to advertise that subset of users on Facebook. And in some cases, those advertisers will try to manipulate those Facebook users' emotions. We need to talk about that. That's a breathtaking amount of power. We need to talk about whether it's in the public interest for Facebook to buy up all its competition. Facebook has no competition. It's a monopoly. You know why it doesn't have any competition? Because every time a startup starts up and starts to gain traction on the internet as a competitor, Facebook makes them an offer they can't refuse. Facebook buys them. Is that a good thing for the American people? These are the kind of things we need to talk about.
Melinda?
Yes. Hi, Senator. How are you?
Well, Melinda.
Two questions for you. One, on the governor's race, have you set a timeline for making a decision? And then on Facebook, do you get any sense that Congress is even capable of agreeing on what to do in passing legislation to regulate Facebook in some way?
On the first question, no, I don't have a timeline, and I'll know it when I feel like the decision is right, and my timeline won't be affected by what other people do or don't do. I mean, if I decide to run, I will run. I don't care who else is in the race. On Facebook, yes, I think there could be some consensus among both Senate and House Democrats and Republicans, because I don't think this is an issue of a divisive issue in terms of D's versus R's. I think I don't see it that way, and I don't think most of my colleagues do. I think we could quickly develop a consensus that Facebook is not doing a very good job of explaining to people what their privacy rights are. And I think that would be a meaningful first start. I don't want to do that. I want to give Facebook a chance to respond. Mr. Zuckerberg knows his company much better than any member of Congress, rather. I'm hoping that he will go back and over the next few weeks send each of us a letter and say, look, I said I was going to extend privacy protection. I said, and he did, that the users on Facebook own their data. Here is how I'm going to let them control their data better, and here is how I am willing to protect their data. Secondly, I hope he writes us and says, let me be very specific what we're going to do about controlling poison on the internet. I think there's some great potential in terms of being able to do that through artificial intelligence that he understands much better than we do. Here's what I hope he doesn't do. I hope he doesn't just go, wow, this is great, I dodged a bullet. That week of rehearsing was worth it. Now let me just go get back to my business. Because I don't think that dog's going to hunt. I do not want to have to vote to regulate Facebook. I don't. But by God, I will if I have to. And I think that's the way most members of Congress feel about it.
Senator
Chris?
Drew Broach.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead, Chris.
Good morning, Senator. Chris Brown from KNOE here.
Hey, Chris.
I want to get some
How's Monroe, man?
It's cold this morning, sir.
Yeah, it's kind of cold up here, too.
So I want to get your response to a couple things coming out of Washington this morning. So I've got two questions. The first, Senators Graham and Coons and Tillis and Booker have merged bills and are expected to introduce legislation called the Special Counsel Independence and Integrity Act.
Right.
Which, I wonder if you intend on supporting that bill. My second question is, House Speaker Paul Ryan expected to announce today that he is not going to seek re-election in the House. Do you think that signals sort of like an impending shift in the Republican Party? As you know, we came out of 2016, there were sort of like two Republican parties. There was the party of Paul Ryan and the party of President Trump. Is this a defining moment for the party?
Let me take them in order. I'm aware of the legislation to basically prohibit the governor, or the president, from firing his special counsel. At the moment, I don't intend to vote for it. I don't think it's necessary. I'm not sure it's constitutional. I've never been convinced it was constitutional. If the president issued an executive order this morning and said, I am directing the United States Senate to take Senator Kennedy off the Appropriations Committee, that would be unconstitutional. It would be a violation of Madisonian separation of powers. I've never been convinced that we have the right to tell the president who he can hire and fire. Having said that, I think it's an academic issue. I don't think the president's going to fire Mr. Mueller. I don't think he should fire Mr. Mueller. I think the president's too smart to fire Mr. Mueller. I think he knows that it would provoke a reaction from Congress. I think the president understands that technically he can't fire Mr. Mueller. He can just direct Mr. Rosenstein to fire him, and I don't believe Mr. Rosenstein would fire him. I don't think it would end the investigation. I don't blame the president for feeling as he does and venting. I mean, you'd feel the same way if the FBI had raided your lawyer's office. I understand that, but we believe in the rule of law, and part of the rule of law is legal procedure. And I've seen no indication that the FBI or the Department of Justice has done anything but follow the rule of law, and we have to let this process play out. I would encourage Mr. Mueller to go as fast and as quickly as he can, but at some point, once he's done, I hope he'll give a report to the American people, say this is what I found. These are the consequences for anybody who broke the law, and just shoot straight to the American people, and I trust the American people to figure it out. Now, on your second question, Speaker Ryan, I wouldn't read too much into that. I mean, I hate to see Speaker Ryan go. I think he's a good man. Don't always agree with him, but I think he's a good man. I think he's just basically exhausted. It's a tough job. One of his objectives in serving as Congress has always been tax reform. We did a massive piece of tax legislation, as you know, a few months ago. I think he feels like he's accomplished one of his political goals in doing that. And I think he's just worn out. I've never considered, I know some people do, but I've never thought of Republicans as, Ryan Republicans or this type of Republican. I mean, we're a pretty big tent, but I just don't think of it in those terms. And the only other thing I'd say is Scalise for Speaker. He'd be a good one.
Drew?
Yes, Senator Drew Broach at the Times-Picayune.
Hey, Drew.
When you mentioned at Facebook, when you mentioned that the biggest surprise was Zuckerberg saying a number of times that Facebook is responsible for its content, what do you think are the implications of him saying that?
Whoa. It could subject Facebook to liability. That's why I was so surprised that he said it. And the first time he said it, I said, well, he misspoke, and we're going to take a break here, and he's going to come back and clarify the record. But he didn't do that. He doubled down. I think there were legal ramifications. There are policy ramifications. There will be economic ramifications of that. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's a startling new development. I've spent a lot of time on this issue, and most of the social media platforms, all that I'm aware of, are very bellicose about arguing that, hey, we're just a neutral arbiter. We're not taking sides here. We're not responsible for content. Now, we have some standards. You can't put nudity on our platform, or you can't encourage people to hurt somebody. But within those parameters, you can say what you want, and we're not responsible. And Mr. Zuckerberg took responsibility yesterday, and whether you agree or disagree with him, it's a major new development.
Fred?
Yeah, Senator, I just wanted to get your response to the Syria attack. We're hearing a lot of calls for a response from the U.S. military. Do you agree with that?
We have to respond. Whether you agree or disagree with him, the president drew a line in the sand. Said you can't use chemical weapons. The first time Assad did, we hit him. He's done it again. We've got to hit him harder. If we don't, our friends won't trust us, and our enemies won't respect us. Assad is a butcher. If Putin and the Iranian Ayatollah went along with this and knew about it and let him do it, they're butchers as bad as he is. And we've got to respond. Now, having said that, I sent Senator McConnell a letter yesterday, and I'm serious as a heart attack. I want to have a classified briefing for all senators on Syria. We need to know what the situation is on the ground. We need to know to what extent Putin was involved, to what extent Iran was involved. We need to know how successful we have been in ridding Syria of ISIS. And we need to help the president make his decision about what we need to do about Syria. Number three, I think before this happened, the president talked about reassessing our involvement in Syria. I think that's perfectly appropriate. I'm not saying that we should stay or get out. I don't have the facts yet. But I do think it's appropriate that we reassess our position in the Middle East. And I would like to see the President of the United States, in conjunction with the Joint Chiefs of Staff and our Secretary of Defense, give an address to the nation and just say, let me tell you where we are. Since 2001, we've been involved in Iraq. We've been involved in Syria. We've been involved in Afghanistan. We're supporting the Saudis against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Here's what we accomplished. Here's what we spent. We spent about $6 trillion, by the way. It's about a third of the nation's debt and a lot of American blood. Here's why we were in and are in the Middle East. Here's what we hope to achieve. Here's how we're going to measure whether we achieve it or not. And here's our objective. I just don't think we have a coherent objective right now. I mean, I hear from some of my colleagues, and maybe they're right, But some of my colleagues in the Senate who think we ought to get deeper into the Middle East say, well, it's the domino theory. You know, if we don't, Syria will fall. Well, I don't think we're going to get rid of Assad. I'm not even sure we should. I mean, I would like to see him go, but I don't know I don't think that's one of our objectives. So, I mean, this is short term. We've got to respond, and we've got to hit Syria in the face. We told them not to do it, and they did it. But longer term, I think the president is right to step back and say, let's talk among ourselves. Congress, because part of it is Congress's decision, Congress and the executive branch about why we're there and what we hope to achieve. And explain it to the American people. It's their money and their blood that we're spilling.
We have time for one more question. Kevin, did you have anything?
Yes, Senator. How are you?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you, man?
Not bad.
Good.
My question, just going back to Facebook, when it comes to the level of poison, or where you draw the line on that, you yourself, your campaign has purchased Facebook ads and whatnot over the years. So where is the line? Where does that get delineated?
You know, Kevin, I don't know the answer to that. And it's going to take a lot more, what's the word I'm searching for? It's going to take a lot more working those things out with the social media platforms. I think there are some things that we can agree that shouldn't be on Facebook. Nudity, encouraging people to hurt somebody else. If somebody wants to run an ad encouraging the genocide of the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, that's wrong. I don't think that ought to be on Facebook. And I know there's a pretty wide guardrails, but public discourse about controversial issues, I think it's fair game. You know, I didn't have time to ask Mr. Zuckerberg this yesterday, but I wanted to ask him, how come when I go on Facebook you just show me stuff I want to see, or you think I want to see, that just reaffirm what you think are my convictions? You know, why wouldn't it be healthy? I think it would, for you to show me other points of view so I can test my assumptions against the arguments of people who disagree with me. Now, we both know why they do it. They want to get me addicted to Facebook and stay on it, so I'll see their ads so they'll make money. I get that. But this First Amendment is very important, and I don't have all the answers today. But I do think that we have to do something about the poison on the internet. But you're right to point out the tough issue is, we can agree on that. The tough issue is what's poison. And I don't want to have Facebook start censoring what I can see in terms of political positions. There have been some allegations that they've already done that. And if they have, they were wrong to do it. Guys, I got to go chair a committee. They couldn't find anybody else today, so I get to do it.
Thanks, Senator.
Okay, guys.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.